Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone watching. Hello, welcome back to Full Circle. OWC is finally over, but we're not quite done here. We've got a few more episodes to go talking about OWC, and this first one is going to be the first in a string of episodes where we have on some special guests to talk about how the World Cup went, this time from the perspective of the winning team. I'm Dio. I'm joined by iFlame and this one guy, and to start off this episode, we're going to be interviewing FlyingTuna. So let's just get right into it, shall we? Like, may as well just start. All right, Tuna, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the people if they somehow don't know who you are after watching OWC about yourself. Yeah, good to have you on. So some of these questions are going to be a little bit more about OWC. Some of them are going to be a little bit more about just like your journey as a tournament player. Because I know you already did an interview with the OS News team. And so when they release that article, if that's not already out, I have to check actually. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, that's very weird. They cannot hear any of you, and I don't know why. Ah, I understand. All right, there we go. They will be able to hear you guys now. So my apologies. New audio interface, new audio issues. So, Tuna, go ahead and introduce yourself once again, and then we'll get right into
Okay.
it. My bad.
Hey guys, I'm FlyingTuna, captain of OWC 2024, winning team South Korea. Hey guys.
All right.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So apparently the OS News article, by the way, is not yet covered. So Aaron, if you want to ask some of those questions, because I specifically left them out of our questions here.
jeez.
So
Wait, okay. I'm gonna have to go find it, but I will do that while you're getting
wonderful.
going here.
All right, so we'll start off with some questions about you, Tuna. What initially got you into tournaments? Because it's been quite a while now. You go back to your profile, and the first badge is April 2019. But I know for a lot of tournament players, you start playing tournaments at least a year or two before that. So, what initially got you into tournaments?
Okay. At first, I didn't really have like anything in mind, like related to tournaments. I was just like busy like farming. That was like in 2018. I was like craving for higher rank, and then there's like a OG South Korean player called Gomu Silvar. That's how you pronounce. Yep. He messaged me. Oh, yo, Tuna. Do you like, are you down to play some tournament? Right. I was like, oh wait, yeah, the tournament is a thing. So I just wanted to try it out, and I started. I think that's how I just started my tournament like career, I guess. And I realized that, oh, if I want, I can actually be better in other ways, not just like double time aim, like like speed. So and it was really interesting to try out like some tournaments, and that's how I just applied more tournaments. And other players also kind of like messaged me to play tournaments with them, and yeah, that's how I started playing
Were there
tournaments.
any players that you looked up to when you first started tournaments? Any inspirations you had?
Like inspiration, like tournament player.
Yeah,
On that time, obviously Bubbleman.
of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bubbleman,
checks out.
just legend.
Mischief.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is like always. He has always been my like role model when it comes to like tournaments. Like there's a like mindset and skill set, everything, and I don't think that's ever gonna change. Like yeah, it's not ever gonna change my mind.
So how was it like
And
meeting Bubble Man at the round table then? Because
oh,
when I was there too, it
yeah.
was just kind of a dream, just like all of these people from all over the world that I never thought I would meet in person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was like my first time to like um for meeting like OSU players like outside of South Korea as well. So not just Bobbleman, like just seeing every like goated OSU players in real life, it just blew up my mind. It was such an amazing experience. Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit here, what do you look at when deciding whether or not to play a tournament? And has that changed over the years? Because I know for a lot of tournament players, some people are really picky and they'll only sign up to just like a couple of tournaments throughout the year. And some of them will sign up to any and every tournament that they are able to play. So, how does that look like for you?
For me, it's not really like I don't really have a strict like condition that I just I'm not gonna play if that's gonna be that. I just like they usually offer me. Not I don't really like look at tournaments myself to apply. They just like offer me to play tournaments with them, and I just like, oh yeah, I'm down, right? And that doesn't really happen just once or twice. Like it ends up being like 5 tournaments, 6 tournaments, right? And it is like when I can't really like do it like control it myself, like if there are too many tournaments applied, then I just start saying like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I have too many tournaments applied. So yeah, I don't think I can manage those like schedules. Like if I also play that tournament, yeah, that's how I just do it. And recently, I started caring about time zone. Like if the teammates I'm gonna play are gonna have like similar time zone with me, yeah, that's also like a massive factor. Because first time when I was like playing tournament, I was so motivated, I was so passionate that I just used to not really give a shit about time zone. I used to just like take a short nap if the time zone is like bad. I used to take a short nap and wake up at 4 a.m. and play. That was like test tournament, if I remember correctly. Yeah, but now it doesn't really work like that. Yeah, so I started taking care of time zone as well. Yeah.
That's honestly pretty similar from a different perspective for me, but
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
it's very funny because the time zone thing also applies to North Americans quite well.
Yeah, I
not
mean,
wanting to
half the
play at
OWC
8 in the
matches you
morning
had
is
to.
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't like
Playing
playing
tournaments
at
with
8 in the morning.
Rectag and be like,
Yeah, not a fun time.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what's your most fond memory from the tournaments that you've played?
Aside from winning OWC, of course. 'Cause I'd
Aside
imagine
from
that's
winning the
like
World Cup
go-to
this year.
answer.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard to like pick one tournament, and also like it's kind of hard to remember.
You can list a few that just come to mind
Yeah.
if it's kind of hard to pick one or remember a specific time.
Maybe like OWC 2018, I think. Yeah, that was my first ever OWC like participating OWC, and I just had some excitement because that is OWC. It's like a competing like country versus country, and I'm gonna be representing South Korea. That thinking made me so excited because I can't wait to like show myself like off, and yeah. Well, it didn't really go well, but
That was
the
the year
overall
with that
experience.
Brazil match, right?
Yeah. Well, I think personally, I did well, but just overall result was not really satisfying, and I feel like that became a big motivation later for OWC 2019, which banger. Yeah. So I think OWC 2018 overall experience-wise, it was really good for me.
You guys have come such a long way from that 2018 team. Looking at that roster.
Yeah, a lot of generation changes. Not gonna lie.
Kind of in a similar vein. Good memories help, but what else has kept you motivated throughout, at this point, over 5 years of playing tournaments in open rank at the top level, playing OWC for this is the, I think, 5th OWC that you played this year? I feel like there was a break somewhere in there, maybe in 20... No, actually...
2022.
2022, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my 6th times, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so what's kept you motivated? Because some players just eventually, lose interest, not super invested in the game anymore. What keeps you invested and interested in wanting to come back?
I don't think I've like ever lost passion of playing some tournaments and like trying to be at the top. And especially for the OWC 2024, I think just overall, just losing the tournament in OWC 2023, like that just broke my heart. And at the same time, I just wanted to, at least once, I just wanted to be at the top, right? Because just giving up, ending with like second place, it's just, it's not cool. I just want to take first place. I want to get that first place at least once, and I feel like that has motivated me. Not just OWC, like some 1v1 tournaments as well. I've been always craving for number one, although they talk about like mainly some like best tournament player like Malashevsky, Vaxe, Emmerich. I just wanted to like be one of them, you know what I mean? And I feel like that has always motivated me to play tournaments without losing a passion. Yeah.
I have
Kind of
a.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Eklund.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say on a somewhat similar track. Do you ever find yourself playing too many tournaments and burning yourself out, or you just enjoy every tournament you play and just like the
Yeah.
grind?
Yeah. It is physically exhausting, obviously, but that didn't really make me lose motivation, it is physically exhausting, but after playing the tournament, it is really fun. It's really fun. I don't really get exhausted. Like, yeah, it's really fun. So it doesn't really make me lose passion from that. Yeah.
I think one thing I've always wondered about, for you and the other South Korean players, especially with the having to do the military training and everything, how do you approach coming back to the game and kind of keep and reaching your previous like level and exceeding it, after being gone doing your military service for the period of time? Like, how do you like? What's the mental approach and everything, kind of like in that regard?
Um, it really depends on your mindset in general. While you're in the military service, if you just wanna chill in the military service and like just don't really think about OSU and just focus on the life, like military service life, then it's gonna go like that. But me personally was like I got the chance to watch OWC 2022 during the military service, right? And just seeing those like matches and the fact that South Korea was like getting second place without me and those and like all the community's reaction to that, mentioning my name, I feel like that just made me more like ambitious to like come back and then get back to my best form when after coming back from military service. Yeah.
Is
It
worse? Go
yeah
ahead. Sorry,
yeah.
Tuna, go ahead.
I think I'll just end it here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say because I think 2022 was Worst HR Player's first OWC, wasn't it? Like that. I
Yeah.
feel like that's a
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
exciting time to be a South Korean OSU player, especially with that
Mhm.
grand finals where he popped off against the US. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, we'll keep on the OWC train. So you were captain this year for OWC. I don't remember how many years how many years have you been captain for OWC? Because I know in the past it's kind of cycled around. Nope, KJK has been captain. There's been a couple of other people before him as well. So, was this your first year, or was there another year that you were captain?
Last year and this year only, so twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
When forming the team roster for OWC, how much emphasis do you try to place on like supplementing your best members and picking players that have similar skills to them to enable them to do really well, or picking players to cover for the core roster's weaknesses? So, speed players like Doomsday Fanboy, for example.
Okay. I'll compare with last year. Okay, so last year we were focusing on our weak skill set, like the fact that we had so many gimmick and tech, like that type of players. So we're obviously really strong on that. But yeah, as you guys know, we lack a lot of speed, like mechanics player, right? Last year we were focusing on getting the player who is good at that, so that we can cover that weak skill set. But it didn't really it didn't really work out well, not gonna lie. So this year compared to last year, we were just Oh yeah, we're like, yeah, let's just give up on speed. It's
I
like,
mean, it works.
yeah, we don't
It
really
works.
have to be. Yeah, we don't really have to be good at everything, And always, also this year, the fact that they allow double ban, I think this
Yeah.
year is the first year that
That was
they,
big.
yeah,
Yeah.
allow. Well, not that it actually worked out as a strategy because there are so many speed maps, not just in the DT map, but like whatever. Like we just focus on making our confidence skill set even better. Yeah, and just from the tryout results, we just picked the players. Depends on like how much scores they got, and yeah, Doomsday Fanboy obviously he is really good at speed and stuff, but it's more like because he got really good scores from the tryout score. That was the main reason, not because he is like a key player from like for speed, So I think, yeah, I think it's just from the tryout, but we didn't really care about the speed. We just gave up on it. Yeah, because we can ban them.
Can.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
want to ask, going off the tryouts thing, how much emphasis do you place on like tryouts performance versus performance throughout the year in tournaments, or especially in South Korea's case with players coming back from military service like Doomsday Fanboy? How much do you look at like past tournament performance before military service? Does that even weigh in? Because it has been a little while since you've seen some of these players in a high level tournament play like OWC.
Oh, so you mean like how much do I emphasize more, like from tryout score or like
Yeah,
the
like
overall?
how
Yeah.
important are tryouts and how important are how the players have been doing throughout the year in other tournaments?
Okay. So it's technically both at the same time. We do care about the tryout score, obviously, but how we pick the players. Wait. Oh shit. Sorry. Yeah. How we
You're
pick the
good.
players is that we obviously pick the top 4 tryout players, right? They're like guaranteed. They're guaranteed. Or was it 4 or 6? I don't really remember. We picked like top 6, and then we like make a group chat. Yo, guys, let's have some talk. We need to pick rest of 2 players, right? And we just talk about like how they got the score on it and how they have been doing, not just from the trial score. Like we just discuss about like which players to pick depends on how consistent they have been. Yeah, that's how we kind of picked players. Yeah, so obviously it is from trial score, but some like top 7, top 8, we're not really sure if we have to just fully just trust on the trial score, right? So yeah, we didn't really bring the player just from the top 8 tryout result. Yeah, that's how we just emphasize.
I see Nope KJK in chat here. Let's talk about him a
Yeah,
little
it's a
bit.
good time for
He's
the
in,
question.
yeah. Oh,
Oh hey.
yeah. So he's on your collab, in your avatar collab. He's listed as the analyst for the team. Allegrisimo was shouting him out in smoke during the tiebreaker showcase. What's his role as an analyst? What does he do for the team, and how does that make you guys better during the World Cup?
No, KGK wants to join BC. Like, do we let him like introduce himself, or do I just say put no KJK in?
I think we can
Put
have
no
him in.
KJ.
I don't see a
We
problem
can.
with it.
I mean, if you guys are fine with it,
If
or like, if
he-
not, I
if
can
he wants
just
to
It'll
join.
be
do it
one
instead.
sec on the. It'll be one sec on the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have to get
maybe
him the
just
role.
Yeah.
you
but-
can start answering the question while we get him the role and get him in the VC, and then by the time you're done answering, we'll have hopefully a Nope KJK.
Okay. So do I still answer the question, or do we
Yeah,
just?
like
Give your
yeah,
perspective. and
Yeah,
then
you
we
can give
let
your
him-
perspective.
he can
Okay.
let himself
Well,
in
in my
there.
perspective, he is analyst, as you guys know, and he is coach basically. Like throughout the like whole OWC, he just like analyzed the scores that like other countries, other like opponents would get, and we compare the score so that whenever we have pick and ban, we get the confidence of it, right? So, oh, they are bad at that map, so we can be better, and that just not just not just like support like our, I don't know how to explain. It just like gives the confidence whenever we pick. Oh yeah, we are good. So we like even like get less nervous. Like he just mentally like, mentally just supports us.
Well,
Yeah.
we can have Nope KJK answer the rest of the question. Hello,
Hey.
Nope KJK.
Yeah,
welcome.
Yeah.
Hello. It was
Oh,
a
so
half
awesome.
joke, half serious, but
Why not?
Yeah,
Hey.
Why not? Why
Yeah,
not?
I
we're
mean,
here.
yeah, you're
We're
here
here.
now. Tell us about your role as a coach. How did that
Yeah.
go so far?
Hello. Yeah, my name is Nov KJK. If you don't know, I was kind of coach and analyst and cheerleaders and like everything,
Cheerleader.
everything that.
The true yapper behind the scenes
good.
in our team. Let's go. Like in a good way, obviously.
Yeah. So yeah, what I basically did for tournament was like I've been like doing the tryout things since 2021, like it's 4 years for now. And yeah, as FlyingTuna said, we have really focused on the tryout scores as well as the previous performance and skill sets. And yeah, but like I would say that we had really emphasized the trial score itself because we test a very large pool of maps and skill sets
That's
there.
true. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
not just
yeah,
like nobody hidden hard rock like that. It's really, really detailed.
yeah, like back in 2023, I experienced a very very experimental tryout map pools. You can check that later, maybe. Anyway, back to the question. The role that I did in tournament was the kind of the band picks first. Like, firstly, it should be analyzing the scores and performance from every map from every players. So we use team sheet and uh in weekdays the players would play the map, and then I track down every scores of the players and then like choose 5 to 6 players who could play this map potentially. And for some maps that has very vague rosters, then we would run a trial lobby right before the match to decide who is like who is comforting at this map today, and who is
comfortable.
yeah, comfortable
Yeah.
at this map, and who is confident about on this map today. So yeah, that's basically what I did. Like,
And
yeah,
Go.
so I had
yeah, a follow-up question for you. How do you go about deciding which maps to pick? Do you think there's any value in saving stronger picks for later on in the match to kind of get some momentum back, or do you just kind of pick your strongest maps as early as you can and just pick the best maps and progressively slightly worse maps?
like in last year and the last year, we have tried some going with the risky pick first and then solid pick next, but I think we just discard them in this year completely, because in the like first few stages, like from round of 32 to quarterfinals, then we have to hide the scores as much as possible. So we just picked very strong maps first, and like very obscure maps such as the normal 3 from was it quarterfinal, semifinal, the Jasper very small map. It was semifinals. Like semifinals number 3. You
Yeah.
ain't ever going to see that skill set in the future pool, probably. So yeah, we tried to pick very strong picks, and also that the picks that that make us able to not reveal much performance on such skill set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That does make a lot of sense. So, well explained. Yeah, I Flame. Do you have any other follow ups? Because I think I think that covers most of it from my end.
I mean, I had one more thing that I was kind of curious about. How much time do you kind of invest into trying to hide your picks? Because I feel like every week, when I was doing prep for the commentary, I don't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was Hyok or maybe it was Allegrissimo, but there was always one Korean player that just had like scores on half of the maps on global leaderboards from 2 days ago, and I'm like, "Whoa,
Oh.
that's interesting." I'm like, do you guys like try and hide that at all, or do you not really care too much? So I'm like,
Oh, that
I'm
is a
like,
good
Hyok's got
question.
an FC on like these 3 maps just on the global leaderboards. That's pretty
That
cool.
is a
I
good
think we're
question.
outing them to their dad right now. I Flame.
You're right. I'm so
They're
sorry,
gonna get in
Hyok.
trouble.
I don't know if that it was actually Hyok. I know it was one person, but
Uh,
Yeah, you go first, FlyingTuna.
so it's about like revealing scores before the actual match.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yes, I do
like
that on
Aura?
purpose.
Is that like Aura? They just get scared
Yeah,
that you
bro.
have FCs?
Yeah, pick that map if you guys are confident, bro. Look at leaderboard, man. That like fucking mindset, you know. Just-
I love it.
yeah. For example, last year, not last year, the grand final this year, DT4.
Yes.
If you
Oh.
guys go to the selected mode, DT.
Yep.
You guys can see War Charter player and me with S rank both, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
Yeah, it was intended. I don't know about War Charter player, but I saw him setting scores with V1. I was like, hey, I also have a good score in V2. Let them just let us just make them scared to pick DT4
Oh
or even bet like so that it is obviously like not high possibility for to change their mind by showing those V1 scores, but I definitely wanted to make them struggle by showing those scores in V1 so that oh wait, I thought we were confident, but now that we see those score in V1, maybe we might struggle. Yeah, like that kind of thing. We wanted to like manipulate them.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's
Mind games.
Yeah.
really funny because I feel like you
Yeah.
guys more than any other team, I would constantly see like 1, if not 2 of the South Korean
Yeah.
players on like every
The
global
DT4
leaderboard.
I remember
And we
one-
actually got the point from DT4, you know?
Right.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
Well,
one
and-
round. I don't remember what map it was, but I was casting a South Korea match, and at the same time as a pick was going on, a 5th member of the team also played the map in solo and appeared on the leaderboard at the exact same time.
Yeah. Pick them out if you guys can. Like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
It's helpful
Yeah.
for commentary though, because I can go in and prep and I'm like, oh, by the way, South
Yeah,
Korea's
yeah.
probably going to be really good at this map. They happen to have 3
Yeah.
FCs on the global leaderboards, guys.
Yeah.
It makes me look better.
Yeah, it's like a mind games, as Bowman said. Mind game
There you go.
tactic. Yeah.
Yeah, like we don't really try to like prevent players from doing that because like Contraito believes that like setting your scores that top on the leaderboard has more upside than downsides, you know. Like if you have like you know 2/3 of the combo scores, then like you might be on the leaderboard, but you might be a little unmotivating. But if you just FC the whole map and shove it into the leaderboard, then you are so competent with it. So yeah, I think that's very wise moves from our players.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't always do that. Like
No, not it wasn't
we
every
always
map.
do that on like some like vague picks that can come, you know, like if it was
Yeah.
like hidden to or something, I wouldn't.
I'm still
because,
waiting for that to
yeah, it's
happen on
kinda-
the Grand Finals DT3. Actually, I'm still waiting for the scores to pop up.
I
on the
was
leaderboard.
actually planning to like I was actually planning to try FC DT3. Nah, bro, that's so hard. That is so hard. No, not happening.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's probably all we have for Nope KJK. I think the rest of this is probably we have like one more stats related question, but I think the rest of this is all good for just FlyingTuna. So Nope, thanks for hopping in just impromptu, and yeah, if you want to stick around, you're welcome to, but at this point I think we'll probably just move on with the rest of the interview.
Thanks for having me. Like I have to go wrap some match.
All right.
My goat.
It's been a pleasure.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so continuing what we were planning on going through after after this question, some of these
Yeah.
are going to be a little bit similar to like the questions that you had for the OS News post. So if you already have those answers, feel free to kind of
Okay.
repeat them here. But we're just doing these because that news post has not dropped yet. So why not? What's it like facing a team as historically dominant as the United States in the OS World Cup, and how has that changed as the 2020s have developed? I feel like in 2018, 2019, it may have been a bit of a different beast facing the United States than in recent years, because the USA in 2019 especially was the most dominant team in the World Cup history.
Wait, I didn't really like completely get like the question. Like, could you like
Yeah, so
so
the United States used to have like at one point, I don't want to say used to have, the United
yeah.
States team sometimes has aura, right? They
Yeah.
make other people scared of facing them. How has facing the United States changed over the years? And what is it like facing a team like that that has that aura?
Oh, so for us, from 2019, we literally had PTSD from getting defeated by
Oh, no.
USA 7-0. Yeah, that actually just like planted in my heart deep inside. Oh yeah, USA is just USA is not in like a human area. It's like a godly, right? So I feel like every time when we are facing like some strong team, like just strong team, we're like, oh yeah, the match is gonna be hard, guys. Let's practice more and let's be a little bit nervous. Yeah, that. But every time, no matter which round, whenever we face USA, we get way too nervous. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm pretty sure our just entire teammates gets too scared by USA. Well, and I feel like that is like kind of leading us to underperform. Like for example, we've given them a lot of breakpoints, like finals as well, and like Nomu 2 first game. Yeah, that I completely entered that just because it was first pick and the opponent was USA. That aura is just insane, and I feel like no other countries can do it. Maybe Australia next year, I expect. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, but like just going off the stats, like the South Korea debuff was so real this year. Like every week except for
Yeah.
the grand finals, obviously, that whatever team played you guys had like just the worst scores of any teams in the tournament consistently for the
Yeah.
first 4 weeks of the tournament.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the question a lot of people were asking this year was, does the United States still have aura? Is it safe to say they still had aura this year, at least from South Korea's
Oh.
perspective?
Oh. I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going with that, because iFlame touched on a point that I wanted to talk about. You guys did not drop a single point until you faced USA. So that makes this, like, statistically speaking, the only team that's ever had a run that's more dominant than this was the USA in 2019. So this is the second most dominant win of any team in OWC history. Do you feel like your run this year lives up to that stat in terms of how dominant you were throughout the tournament?
Like our team, right?
Yeah.
Not just my
Yeah.
personal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this year our performance was like as amazing as like 2019 USA, I would say. Uh, but I feel like we could have done better versus USA at least. Like till the match versus Germany, like semifinals, we didn't really have anything to like like, oh, by the way, we could have done that, like but USA, as I said from previous questions, the pressure of playing against USA was so much bigger than we expected, and that kind of like led us to like giving them some breakpoints, even like Noma 2 and like Rubik's Cube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. So it's still. I think our performance was really outstanding. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think it was really good.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up curious thing. So, speaking of Rubik's Cube, right? You go into the grand finals, you end up dropping Rubik's Cube, you give up another breakpoint, you're down 4-1. What was the team's reaction to being down early in the grand final, and how did you manage to turn the match around the way that you did to win the next 6 points straight to win the match?
Okay. Well, me personally, when we were in like score 1-4, I was pissing myself. I was literally pissing
Fair enough.
myself.
Honestly,
But we were like our whole atmosphere in Team VC was still really good. Like, it sucks. It's 1-4, but we had like bracket reset, right? We had one more life. So I was like, oh yeah, guys, it is 1-4, but whatever, it's okay. Like even if we lose this match, we have bracket reset, so we can just bring it back. And we had so many experience of reverse sweeping like that, like the 1-4 curse, the incident. Such as like last year, the match versus Philippines, we were also losing like with the same score. Like
I
1-4,
casted
think.
that match. I remember.
Yeah. So basically,
Instant
we
classic.
kind of knew how to deal with it, and we knew that that score, that number doesn't really matter. Like if we just win like 6 times in a row, like we can just win.
Just
So-
win 6 times in a
win.
row,
I
guys.
just win 6
Yeah.
times. I legit said that as a joke, right? Like when it was 1-4. Yeah, guys, it's okay. Let's just win 6 times in a row. I did not expect us, like ourselves to actually do that,
There you
bro.
go.
What? Yeah, it was actually it's so funny.
Oh my
So-
god.
I have a question actually based on that, because I'm getting this vibe from you and from this team. A few years ago, right, you're talking about losing 7-0 in the 2019 Grand Finals and having PTSD. A year or two later, you had, I want to say it was maybe a 6-0 loss to Brazil.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were on the team. That might have been while you were gone in military. I forget offhand. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But ever since then, it's just been like this increase in confidence every year. Has that been a big point that you guys have been working on? Has been, let's work on our mental and our confidence and our aura to build that up to stop having that be a point of failure, because now we're like, let's win 6 points in a row, and you just do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not just from the mindset. Like, I mean, it definitely helped us. Like, but no matter how down we are after seeing seeing our like process like 1-4, like we just decided to just shove it in like deep inside our heart and just like try to ignore it, right? Even in the Brazil match, that it was 2020, so I was there. I remember saying when we were losing 5-0, I was like, our teammate was like literally having mental breakdown. And I was like trying to say, oh guys, let's just win 6 times in a row. I remember saying that, and we lost. Yeah, okay, well, that was unfortunate, but yeah, that definitely has given a lesson. And because on that time, I'm pretty sure we lost because our mindset was like not that stable. So even from those failures, well, I feel like we learned, and I think that led us to kind of be more calm. Yeah.
To follow up on that quickly, I feel like a lot of the South Korean OWC players and just tournament players in general play a ton of tournaments together. Like every open rank 4v4 tournament is always a team of some of the best South Korean tournament players that tend to do very, very well, especially in the past 2 years. Do you feel like that has played a part in your guys' confidence as a team as well?
Oh yeah. Um. It's more like in 2019, 2020, like it was not as strong as this year for sure. So our mindset on that time was like, let's try to like be as further as possible, that mindset. But now is like there's so many good players, Like this year, the fragrance of Page, he was the rookie this year. I'm confident, and I knew he is really good. Like he was really good. Like from the Korean tournament, it's called OKT, and I was versus him, and I got so scared. And like those like performance kind of at the same time on that time, I was scared, but at the same time, it made me happy. Oh, he is like in OWC, he is like our ally, not enemy.
Right.
So like, oh yeah, dude, this year we're winning. Like obviously, yeah, it really did give us confidence. Yeah, because all the 8 players were like had no flaw. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, we're winning this year. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. Last question. You've had
Yeah.
multiple finishes in the top 4 in OWC. South Korea finished second place back-to-back in 2022 and 2023. You alone have finished top 3 separate times in the World Cup before this. What's
Yeah.
it like to finally win?
Oh, so unreal, man. It's so unreal. To be honest, I really can't. I really can't express my emotions like just with words, with just words. Like it's really really hard to just explain by just like saying some sentences. It was I'm so happy that it finally happened, and after like everything we as a team have been through, and it means so much, not just to the 2024 roster players, but also like to like past roster players like Zaysen and like Karuna, like those who have been cheering and supporting us throughout all this time. And it is definitely one of the greatest things in my life. And yeah, I'm really happy. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. It's finally done.
Thank you.
It's finally done.
I'll keep going though. I'll keep going. It doesn't mean it's
Okay.
done. Yeah.
Good.
okay.
I actually
you
forgot to ask that question at one point, but I figured you would just keep
There you
playing
go.
tournaments, including OWC.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing you back again. And thanks a bunch for taking the time to interview with us and to give us your insight on everything that went on in the World Cup this year and in your journey as a tournament player. For everyone watching, go follow FlyingTuna. He is a better
Thank
player
you.
than any of us, so worth
You're
following.
not
just for
already
that.
following. What are you doing?
That's true. And that'll
Very
be
good
it for the
point.
interview segment. So, Tuna, thank you very
Okay.
much for being on, and we're gonna move into the grand finals recap and tournament retrospective.
Thank you so much for the interview, and thanks for watching, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, Tuna.
All right.
Thank you.
So that'll bring
wait a sec.
us to the grand finals recap. We're going to start with the United States versus Australia and just go through some of the early stages of this match. So, kind of both matches started out very similarly, both with a break point from the first pick of one of the teams. In this match, it was Australia that started off with the breakpoint lead. So they took the early win on DT1 and then immediately breakpointed on Free Mod 3 in Rubik's Cube, with Sayo getting 900k with Hard Rock.
Yeah, I don't even know. Sayo 900k hard
Oh,
rock.
that's
That just
crazy.
speaks for itself, dude. Like, that score was dumb.
Yeah, that was a little silly. And then after that, we had the breakpoint again on Nomad 2 from the USA's third pick, I believe. And this put Australia up 3-1, eventually 4-1 with their next pick. This was like a really massive point in the match, right? With Australia being up 4-1, I think the expectation for a lot of people was that it would be really tough for United States to come back in this match, especially with there still being a couple of other picks left that seemed good for Australia.
The Nomad 2 was a weird map in context, not only of this
Yeah.
match, but also for like the weekend, I feel, because that was a map archetype that the United States is not supposed to be losing to Australia. And it also meant that there was like another map that they probably couldn't play against South Korea, because if they were going to lose this against Australia, like, oh my God, what's South Korea going to do to them on this map, right? And it's rare to see United States like having this much trouble with early picks. It was unexpected, I guess, to say the least, for them to really not have any individually great scores on Rubik's Cube, let them losing it by nearly 500k, and then they got just team gapped on the Nomad 2 as well. I know the difference was only 200k, but when the score is only 1.4 million in the first place, like that's pretty notable. And they just didn't have any meaningful scores on that map either. Like their top score was 341k and their bottom score was 278. Like the level was not where it needed to be. That was super, super concerning to see the United States perform the way they did on the early maps.
Yeah, and even then, it was by no means easy for them to make a comeback, right? They very nearly lost it all multiple times. They won by 70k on the free mod 1, 31k on the Hard Rock 2, which I know some people were not necessarily a fan of that pick, but I do think they were just out of picks at that point. And ultimately, they were one, maybe two unlucky misses from being eliminated by Australia, which would have been historic. And I mean, when they went down 4-1, it was I was so surprised. I was like, wait, maybe they can actually do it, because I mean, going into the weekend, I honestly didn't think they had much of a chance. And I was like, are they actually going to eliminate the US and
I
it's going
was
to be
the
an
only
Australia,
believer.
South Korea grand finals? You were. And I mean, to their credit, they put in a lot of work. I think last week during predictions, the general consensus was, I mean, aside from Dio, who believed in them, the general consensus was US should be the stronger team. Australia can definitely win if MREC just goes off and destroys everybody else. But otherwise, they don't stand a chance. And to his credit, he absolutely did. It just unfortunately wasn't enough. And I don't also want to kind of feed into the narrative that it was, MREC all alone. I think he pretty consistently had a pretty strong, at least at the very least, secondary supporting combo. It was just they unfortunately did not have the depth of the US roster, understandably. Very few teams do. And so I mean, you obviously see the score was insane. Box had some really impressive scores, so they really did have a good showing as a team, even though they only had 5 players. The ones who did play, it looked really good.
The clip that's been playing in the back for a while now is one of those cases where even with a really solid secondary score, in this case, MREC actually the secondary score to Atkins, it still just was not enough. Window Life top scoring in the lobby for the United States, and then a couple of other really good scores from like Rectagon, Pez, and even Taquito above 400k. It's really the depth that mattered there, and that was kind of the turning point in this match. I feel like Australia was up 4-1. USA takes their own pick, but then USA winning speed against Australia, and not just like, DT4 alt hybrid speed stuff. No, like straight up speed in free mod. I feel like was a really big turning point for this match. And that's kind of where things turned around, because from that point onward, every single pick was just won by the team that picked it. So it was USA 4-3, tied 4-4, and then they just win their own picks and go to tiebreaker.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting actually about the speed, because for the whole tournament, Australia was the speed team, right? They were feared on anything tapping related, and at least for the early stages of the tournament, they put up some absurd, 4+ million scores on a lot of the DT picks, but it felt like the consistency on those picks dropped off a little bit towards the later stages. Russia, who's obviously also very good at tapping, got a speed point off of them, but Germany as well, who wasn't as good as tapping this year, got a speed point off them, and then the US as well took a couple of tapping points off them. So I think a lot of it just came down to consistency and not being able to put together the full 4-man roster on those later stage speed picks, as good as they still were on most of them.
Also, so like on the super, super low key, as much as the first half of this match was Australia playing well as a team to get them out to the 4-1 lead, they would have won the match if MREC didn't get no helped like the entire back half of the match on the USA's picks. The Hard Rock 2, MREC got the top score in the lobby by 130k and they lost it by 30,000 points. The Free Mod 1, MREC put up a 900k 2 miss and they lost it by 70k. Like, if he gets any help on either of those maps, they just win the match. And then, of course, the tiebreaker where he puts up 633K, top in the lobby by 80,000 points. They lost it by 200K, so that one was like it was going to be very difficult. He needed a lot of help on that one. But those other two picks, they could have avoided tiebreaker altogether. It was just unlucky that they didn't have like one better score on one of those two maps. So that USA kind of got allowed to escape both of those. Bit of a shame there, but I mean the cinema of the tiebreaker was pretty crazy. It was like if Emrek holds this entire map, they can win, and then he almost does it. Like
Yeah, he
what
had
the
the
heck?
highest
Close.
combo in the lobby. He was top scoring, and then a single massive space stream claims his combo, and that's the match at that point. There's just nobody else with combo basically anywhere on this tiebreaker. People were
Yeah.
saying this tiebreaker was easy, and the top scores are good, but the bottom scores are still like 200K. So I'm somewhat confused, but I guess save that for another
Well,
time.
I think there's a difference, and I mean we'll probably talk about this at a later date, yeah. But I think there is a difference between like a map being easy on paper and a map being easy in context of the pool, and like a map actually playing like an easy map when you're in a tiebreaker in a grand finals week of the OWC World Cup. Like I think
Yeah.
it can be easy, but still end up with bad scores because the setting and the pressure and everything are so high.
Well, unfortunately, not enough for Australia. So the US moved on to the grand finals, and this was also very eventful. This match also started off with a breakpoint on Fremod 3 twice in a row. We got breakpoints on
Yeah.
Fremod 3, which is a little silly. And this was a breakpoint this time around for the United States. And as we talked about with Tuna, that kind of kept happening because South Korea won their second pick but lost their third pick. This is exactly the same way that the United States went up 4-1 in the losers bracket finals. The exact same way. You first pick Fremod 3, you get breakpointed, you win your second pick, and then you lose your third pick and you go down 4-1.
Yeah, I wrote the as yet unpublished news posts section about this match, and it was really reviewing that over. It was just deja vu, man. It was the same exact match for the first entire like half of it, twice in a row. They even had like the early Nomad 5 pick. Like everything was so similar. I think you know what Tuna was saying, right? This was just a very high pressure setting, and you know the USA is still the USA in the grand finals, and you have that little bit of a debuff as you're kind of getting comfortable in the match and getting things going. And US, you know, I think one thing about this match, of course, was that the US did have the really obvious strength in speed. And then they showed it off, right? They won the Nomad 5 by 570K, and they won the DT2 by 1.2 million. Like the picks were really crystallized in this match, so those were much less surprising than USA taking 2 breakpoints. And I think the breakpoints you could really just attribute to South Korea being a little bit nervous in the early goings, just not getting the scores they needed on Rubik's Cube or on the Hidden 3. Dude, people gotta stop sleeping on window life on these tech hiddens, bro. I was listening to the commentary on I think it was Chillier on the Australia USA match, being like shocked that window life was in for that map and being shocked that he was top scoring
that
it.
was
I'm
Azer.
like,
That was Azer.
oh, it was Azer. Okay, I
Yeah.
apologize, Chillier. My bad.
But window life
but
on Tech
I was like,
Hard Rock, I think, is expected, and I agree with you there. Tech Hidden, even I was a
Nah.
little surprised he was this good on Tech
Nah,
Hidden.
yeah, I've seen him on a couple of those picks over the course of this year and just absolutely going insane. There was a Corsace custom set that got reused. I want to say it was in USC that he came in for. There was a Hidden 3 in USC, and like Window Life just went absolutely nuts. And I was like, okay, this guy is crazy at Hidden Tech. And then he comes in and top scores the Hidden 3 in both Losers Final and Grand Final here.
I don't think it was played in Losers Final. I think because I know they played the Hard Rock 3. I don't think it was played in the Losers Final. I'm gonna double check, but I'm pretty sure
it was like the it was.
Oh yeah, no, they did. Okay.
Yeah, it was the map that tied. It was the map that tied the Losers Final.
Yep, fair enough.
And
All right.
Window Life got a 583K on it. and then he goes back and gets 470K the next day. He actually didn't top score at Worst Day Chart Player top scored it, but he had the best USA score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we could spend all day talking about the scores and the players and the kind of individual points, but I wanted to talk about it from more of a narrative perspective. There's, I mean, obviously, Tuna mentioned it in the interview, but there's a lot of talk about the pressure of facing off against the USA. But I mean, I was thinking about this morning before the podcast, and I felt slightly bad for some of the newer players on the US, the rookies, right? I think it was Decaton and Pez, and then it was Boschi's second OWC as well. There must be a lot of pressure for them too, right? You have this like team that is supposed to be the absolute best, that's won however many times in a row. It feels like everybody is rooting for you to lose because, I mean, I don't think many people were cheering for the US outside of the US. And I mean, it must weigh on you quite a bit to have what feels like everybody rooting against you in your first international tournament to no fault of your own. But I do think they performed well regardless. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention that because I feel like I've not heard anyone talking about it, but that must be a pretty tough environment to go into mentally.
Yeah, I know they asked Kama about that in his interview last year when they did the OWC conclusion news post, and he said something to a similar effect, like, "Yeah, it kind of sucks to have a lot of people rooting against you for basically
Yeah,
no reason, but I don't know, you deal with it, right? You
yeah,
just you get past it." But not everyone can just get past that. So I know a lot of especially the longer standing players on Team USA kind of advise newer members to just, hey, maybe don't look at Twitter while we're playing the
yeah.
World Cup,
Yeah.
because it may not serve you very well during this tournament. It may not
Yeah.
affect the mental positively, which yeah, understandable, because there's a lot of I even want to say hate for USA, and that's not really deserved. You can root against them and dislike them
Yeah.
for um, other reasons, but just because they've been, winning for a long time doesn't mean they deserve hate. So
No,
That's what
don't.
oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, don't send hate to any of the players. No,
yeah,
it doesn't matter how they play. It is a game at the end of the day, and there's no need for,
yeah, not
mean
not over
comments or anything like
OWC,
that.
not over OWC.
Exactly.
It's like I said in the intro monologue during the grand final is the freaking like the Batman speech, right? You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And like low
Yeah.
key, that's exactly what happened to the United States.
I mean,
Like
yeah,
2015, right? If you go back
they
all
were
the
the
way to the
heroes.
beginning,
Yeah.
right? It was like the huge thing, like, oh my god, this gigantic upset win over China. The match that got a lot of people into OSU. I think if you pick any single instance of what made OSU and OSU tournaments what they are today, I think the 2015 World Cup Grand Final is like a big point because so many people saw that USA win and were like, "Oh, sick! Like, look at what's possible." And now you're 9-10 years later, and it's like, "Oh, these guys again, man!" Like, the people are just tired of it, and it's like become this expectation. Right, the USA is just expected to win OWC, and I think a lot of people got really bored of that. And I don't think it deserves hate, but I think it is easy to understand as especially as a neutral spectator, as people not from the United States, people not from South Korea, for instance. You want to see something new and interesting happen. You don't want to just see the same team winning over and over. It's the same thing that happened, a real sports example, right? Same thing that happened with the New England Patriots. It's like you get sick of seeing the same team winning the Super Bowl every year. And you get sick of seeing the same team winning OWC every year.
Yeah. I mean,
2015, the United States is playing an East Asian country. There is a big upset in grand finals. 2024, the United States is playing an East Asian country. There is a big upset in grand finals. Time is a
a
loop,
little different.
but the shoe is on the other foot this time around. How the turntables?
You
It
could
is
argue
basically
that
the same, but also the exact opposite at the same time.
I say you could argue that this wasn't really an upset. I
I
think
would
You
agree.
could, but like
But-
it's been 10 years.
in historical context,
Yeah.
it's an upset.
Yeah.
In the
I mean-
context of this year, it's not an upset.
Yeah, I mean, it ties in well to the other narrative I wanted to mention because I think on paper it wasn't really an upset. I mean, I had at the start of the year, I think myself and a lot of other people, analysts especially, had South Korea as the favorites to win this year. But the overwhelming feeling is, as we've talked about, the US just has the aura. You know, so many teams in the past have come so close. It was the UK in 2018 brought them to tiebreaker. South Korea did it last year, but the US has always prevailed. And so even though you look at the South Korean roster and you're like, well, this might be one of the strongest rosters we have ever had in OWC. On the other hand, you're like, well, it's also the US. Like they could just win again, as they've done for so many years. And so, I mean, we had a watch party going with a lot of the OWC staff watching the grand finals match, and the general sentiment was like we were all in awe a little bit when they actually won because it didn't quite feel real at first. You know, it took a moment to sink in because it's like it's somebody has finally done it after 8 years, and it was very kind of surreal to watch, even though it was expected. It still gave that feeling of an upset because the U.S. have been so dominant for so long, and it's almost become the de facto. Oh yeah, U.S. just wins again. Nothing new.
Nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens. I feel like, by the way, we're a little off track from the actual match recap. So I'll just
Yes.
kind of go through this very
Yeah,
quickly.
it's
But by the way, hey, let's just win 6 in a row. Started on CS 7.8 Hard Rock. I just want to
Probably left on his own, and this guitar solo session has not tripped up the rest. It's slowly gaining for the United States.
Every single
Slowly, though, and time is
in
not
order
in the
to
United
win
States'
with
favor.
getting all 6
They're
in a
going
row.
to run
The
out of
very
combo
next
on
one
this
saw
map
Yuck
if South Korea doesn't
disconnected.
find some more breaks. It's the
Oh!
game ball. Wait, Live Andrew Tommy both go down, and now it is
so
only
they
Rectagon.
just
Meanwhile,
got
you have
his foot
FlyingTuna, you
at
have
the
Forum, and the map.
Ooh, wait, it's okay.
It must have already been over. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
This lead is still strong on
already
the side
over.
of the USA, but we have to wait and see. It is over. We have seen on the update. It is South Korea to still take
Oh
the.
my god,
No idea.
some clip is unmuted. How did that happen?
It is.
How does
I
that even
don't know
happen?
how that's possible.
I don't know what happened for that.
All right, can we go to the next clip because no
um,
one can hear us? It's very
no,
loud
it
clip.
should be fine now.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, okay, it's good.
Okay.
It should be
That was a
fine
new
now.
one.
All right,
Okay.
may have to
I don't
go
know
back
what
30
happened
seconds,
there
Gio.
because they were all muted by default last night. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Anyway, yeah, Yock disconnected at the end of this one for this breakpoint. And then in this one, make sure that stays muted. Okay, good. This one was the Hard Rock 1. This was the last breakpoint that they took. And basically, when they took this, I think a lot of people watching basically said, okay, it's over now. They win. Because the next map that they played was No Mod 3. And this was still open. And I think at this point, basically everyone was thinking, okay, they just pick No Mod 3 and win. Like, that's it. That's the match.
It's very much like the winners final in that regard,
Yeah.
where USA basically had there was like a timer on this match for the USA in which they had to win, and if the timer ran out, they were just going to lose the match no matter what happened. Because much like in the winners final, USA just ran out of picks. Like they just didn't have good options left. If they win the Hard Rock 2, it's a completely different match because now they're up 5-1 and the momentum stays on their side. Instead, they give up Breakpoint, they lose Cardinal Rave because Fragrance of Page and Forum go nuclear. Then DT4 happens, and it's just like, I talked during the match about the United States being a team that's so good with momentum, but South Korea is the same way. If you let them get back into this match as the United States, you just are not going to have a good time because they're going to have more maps left later on than you are. So yeah, USA had to win this like 7-1, 7-2. If you let it get to 9, 10, 11 picks into the map, or into the match, you're just going to run out of picks in this pool. And Hard Rock 1 was literally an absolute must win. And Hyuk said, nope. You are not doing that. That dude played insane, by the way, the last few maps of this match. for between that combo on the Nomad 4 and then getting almost 800k on Hard Rock 1, like those were two really important scores for them to keep the lead on the Nomad 4 and then to outright win the Hard Rock 1. Really, really massive. But yeah, the USA was just out of picks, and then Nomad 3 happened. Like you said, if we play Nomad 3, South Korea is winning this, and go and behold.
They did, yeah. It was really cool to see as well how many different South Korean players stepped up to put up big combos and actually win maps for their team. It was very much not just the worst HR players show. They put up a really strong team performance. Hyok had a couple of maps that he carried. Tuna had a couple of maps that they carried. Bragrance as well had a few maps that they carried. And so it really felt like everybody on the team stepped up at a different point, and that's ultimately what won it for them. Simply, they were just the better team this year, and they deserve the win.
And I do want to say regarding that, you made me realize that like that's such an important factor. I can't thinking back, there aren't teams that actually win the entire tournament with one player, right?
No.
In the past couple of years, we have like these incredible performances from one person that you talk about, right? Like Emrek or Malashevsky or worst HR player, or if you go back to 2018, even you talk about Bubble Man. What's the thing in common with all those teams, though, is that none of them won. Those are all teams that are close, but not quite there. Whereas the United States have historically been the team where it's like, well, they had this player popping off, then they had this player popping off, then they had this player popping off. And South Korea was the one to do that this year. And like you said, it's just being the better team, which is something that we've not been able to say about a country other than the United States for a really long time. They were able to put together a full roster where we talked about this in the predictions, right? The core of their roster was so good at so many things that any of them could carry almost any map.
Yeah.
Turns out roster depth is really important in a team tournament. Who would have thought? That's a crazy thought, no?
Very important, and yet also incredibly difficult to actually find. Just have more depth on your roster. Come on, guys.
Have the biggest population of OWC players in the world. Forehead.
Just have more of the best. Yeah. Well, I mean that's why they won, right? Is because they actually did that this year. And I feel like part of that was the strategy Tuna talked about of, you know what, screw it, we're not winning speed anyway. Let's just ignore it entirely and just put all of the best aim control, tech, reading, gimmick players in the world onto one team and be better at everything that isn't speed. Kind of worked.
Right.
Kind of worked.
It's funny because they're not even
ran out of picks.
They're not even like bad at speed though.
Yeah,
no. Right? Like they were, the first few rounds, like they were obviously where they didn't lose any maps, and then they kind of contested some speed picks, and even like against the USA, yeah, they got blown out on a couple of them, but I mean, like Tuna has gotten a lot better at speed. Karcher, very good at speed. Fragrance of Page, pretty good tapping player. Doomsday Fanboy on the team for tapping, regardless of what Tuna may have said. Like, let's be real, it felt to most people like that was what he was on the team for. So I think they're better at that than people give them credit for. But yeah, it helps that they're literally just by a mile the best aim team in the world, and there were always like 4 aim maps in every pool for them because nobody was banning aim against them, because you have to ban the like gimmicky aim control tech reading whatever, pick your poison. Everybody banned that stuff out against them, and then they just like, okay, we'll pick and win Nomad 1, Hidden 1, Hard Rock 1, and Free Mod 1 every single match because we're that much better at aim than everyone else. And look at that, they just won aim against literally everyone.
Yeah, and I think that decision was actually very necessary in order for them to win OWC this year, because the reality is, and I imagine this is what they realized this year, is that if you have 4 fill players to cover your speed weakness, they're still not going to be as good as the best speed players in the world that the USA has. There's no world. You can make it closer, but there's no world in which you're going to consistently beat that team on speed. And so by far your best option is just to guarantee yourself wins on everything that isn't speed. And that's what they did a very good job of this year.
All right, let's move on from just the Grand Finals recap into kind of tournament retrospective. So I prepared this last night, which is our predicted tier list versus the actual placements of every team. One thing that's very interesting about this is top 8 is actually really close. We effectively just flipped Canada and Russia in top 8, and everything else was correct. So top 8 this year was pretty clear cut overall, with the only difference being Canada is no longer top 6 and Russia is now top 6. After that, things get a little less correct. We got China and Hong Kong correct in 9-12. Norway and Indonesia were not top 12. Indonesia was not close. They were 17 through 24. Norway, of course, was 13-16. And then, of course, Philippines and Poland were the actual other top 12 team. Now, Poland, we were close. We said 13-16 for them. Philippines, we said 17-24, which is quite wrong. We had Philippines and Indonesia completely switched, with a two-tier difference between the both of them. And then 13-16, originally we had France in there. That didn't happen. We had Poland in there. They did better than that. We had Romania in there. That did not happen. And we had Sweden in there, which was actually correct. So we got one team correct in 13-16. And then 17-24 is kind of a similar story. We had Spain originally. We did get Finland, Japan, and Thailand correct, but I think that's it, because all of the rest of them were either up or down a tier. Which was something else. 25-32 as well. The predictions are kind of all over the place. We have Argentina. We have Kazakhstan we had in a different tier. We had Malaysia in a different tier as well. Singapore we got correct. Turkey we had in a different tier. Spain we had in a different tier also. So this was like all over the place. In top 32 to top 12 was just kind of wild. And of course, this was also the first year that Peru qualified, the first year that Belarus qualified, Austria qualifying again. So this was a kind of wild World Cup in terms of what it felt like general expectations were versus what actually happened. There were some people saying things like, for example, I predicted Peru to qualify, but I don't think a lot of people did, right? There were not a ton of people who actually had Peru qualifying. I don't think basically anyone had Belarus qualifying. Turkey getting top 16 was not something that even I thought would happen, and I'm usually an underdog rooter. People expected Spain to be better. People expected Taiwan to be way worse. We didn't even have them qualifying, and yet they made top 24. It felt like there was just so much that could have gone up or down in the, bottom 50% and really bottom 60%. Only the top 8 felt like they were set in stone.
Yeah, I feel like there's always going to be a lot of variability in those bottom teams. So much dependent on map pool, how teams are feeling on the day. And I will also say, I wasn't on for these predictions, but even though a lot of them in the bottom half are a little bit off, I'd say for the most part, outside of I think 3 teams, the ones that are wrong are only wrong by 1 tier at most. So I think expectations were actually relatively in the right place. Some teams made it around farther than expected. Some teams made it around less than expected, but overall, outside of the 1 or 2 big surprises like the Philippines and a couple others, Taiwan you mentioned, I think
it's like Philippines,
expectations
Taiwan.
were pretty well met. Yeah,
I think it's like Philippines, Taiwan,
there's
Turkey,
one other team, Turkey,
Indonesia, because Indonesia
was off by 1.
They were only off by 1. Was it?
Yeah.
Or no, Indonesia was off by 2. Indonesia, we had top 12. They finished 17-24. Poland was off by 1.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I know, confusing flags. France was only off by 1. Romania was only off by 1. Yeah, I think those are the 4 teams that were off by 2 tiers.
Yeah.
I think it's just... So, OWC is really top-heavy.
Yeah.
Right? It's really, really top-heavy. I mean, everyone in the world predicted the top 3 right. regardless of order, everybody in the world predicted the top 3, right? Like everyone was saying it's South Korea, USA, Argentina. Wow, South Korea,
Argentina.
USA,
Argentina
Australia.
top 3.
It's South Korea, USA, Australia top 3. Like everyone in the world, right? That was easy. It was free. And then Germany, UK, Canada, Chile. All competing for the top 6. Russia. I mean, I'm the famous like Russian hater. Obviously, I just expect them to lose in before top 6 every year. But I had still they're expected top 8 at least. And then after that, it just gets so murky so fast because I like iFlame said, it just depends on who gets a pool that has 1 or 2 more maps that are slightly favored to them. Who has like the slightly better player that plays slightly better on the particular given day. The margins at the lower end are really, really small between these tiers. I think we probably undercredited Philippines roster. Obviously, it's a big deal to lose Henry and to lose Hyok, but they did still have Nathan Ram, who was obviously one of the best players in the entire tournament that wasn't on, one of those top teams, probably was the best player in the tournament that outside of, the top. You could even argue he was better than like most players on the 7th and 8th teams. Like he was, super, super top performer. We gave France credit.
I didn't give France. I want to clear. I did not give France any credit.
I also I did not give
them.
France credit.
I mean, we gave France credit to get top 16. Like that doesn't feel like it should be such a crazy task.
I have predicted against them always 2 years in a row, and I have been rewarded.
So I don't know. I think there's a couple of misses there that are less surprising misses if you look at why they finished where they did. And then there's others where it's literally just the margins are so small that on any given day anybody could win any of these matches at the lower end. I'm still like face with raised eyebrow emoji at Belarus qualifying. I still don't know how that happened. I am very confused by that. That one will never cease to look a little weird to me to see their flag in qualifying. But yeah, I think it doesn't look like we did very well, but I think it was just so hard beyond kind of generally grouping teams into broad, like 8-team groups. Beyond that, it was always going to be super hard, I think, to delineate them any further into the 4-team groups in 9 through 12, 13 through 16.
Yeah.
It is a little tough sometimes to figure that out. I wanted to touch on a couple of other things while we do this tournament retrospective. So we touched on the predictions. Let's talk about the teams that over or underperformed like individually, because being different from predictions doesn't necessarily mean over or underperformance. I feel like the bar for that is kind of set in qualifiers, and then from there you are over or underperforming. To me, it felt like some of the teams with really high placements got, to their credit, still played well, but definitely got a pretty solid bracket for allowing them to get that far into the tournament. Like Turkey, for example, they played very well. They beat France in an upset win in round of 32, which already bodes very well for them. They faced the United States, obviously dropped to losers bracket, and then they get Taiwan. And Taiwan is a team that a lot of people were thinking does not even qualify this year. They beat Malaysia 5-3 and then lost 6-0 to Turkey. So to me, Turkey had a pretty solid bracket. That doesn't take away from the fact that they were still top 16 this year, right? That's the best result for their country ever. But when looking at like teams who I think are going to keep that level of strength year over year, I don't know how confident I am in saying, okay, this means Turkey can probably top 16 again next year. Whereas with Ukraine, for example, they are beating Kazakhstan, they are beating Brazil, and they are taking Philippines to tiebreaker, which to me says, okay, Ukraine can probably get there again. They can probably do it again next year.
Yeah, and that was without Dench, right? I think a lot of people expected Ukraine to have a lot more of a difficult time without Dench, but they had a very good performance. They were very, very close to getting to the top 12. And they've got a pretty stable core, right? Obviously, they have a couple players that are the primary carries, but unlike last year, where felt like it was all on Dench, I thought the other players really stepped up this year, and it felt like everybody really contributed, and that's a very positive sign going forward when you're not just relying on one player. Another team I wanted to mention that had a similar thing going is China, right? Who ended up 9-12, exactly where we expected in the end, but they were made a tiebreaker against Canada, and
Yeah.
Canada went to tiebreaker against the UK. So you could hypothesize that China could have had a close match against the UK, theoretically at least. And so Canada was actually not that far behind Canada and the UK, some of the other teams that made the top 5 to 8 bracket. And so despite their placement, I think China actually had a pretty good showing this year.
Yeah, I think if you're going to order the teams from 9th to 12th, the order is probably like China and the Philippines side by side,
Yeah.
and then Poland and Hong Kong side by side. Because Poland and probably actually, I don't even know. Poland and Hong Kong side by side, just because Russia and Chile both had a very easy time in the other side of that losers bracket. But Canada and the UK both dropped quite a few points to China and the Philippines, respectively. And regardless of mental gymnastics tomfoolery for the United Kingdom, trying to fool opponents into thinking that they are worse than they are. Canada also just played up to their level in the second match and took them to tiebreakers. So, like, it seems more than right to say that both of those teams are just about as good as each other for China and the Philippines.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious. Where do you guys put Russia relative to Canada and the UK? I think it's fair to say they're behind Germany. I'm personally tempted to put them slightly ahead of the UK and Canada, but it's really hard to say. Obviously, it's all speculative.
I would have to go back and look at the scores again, honestly.
That's very fair.
The fact that the score lines were similar in finals, and it was Australia versus Russia, but Germany versus the United Kingdom, and then Australia 7-3s Germany, which is actually a 1 point closer than they did against Russia, I think probably tells me that Russia's a little stronger this year.
I think so.
But
obviously impossible
you
to
can't
say
really
for
know
sure.
unless they face off.
No.
I don't know. That's really hard to say.
It is.
Yeah,
That's what makes
really
it interesting.
Feels like they were probably a little stronger. Yoanji, are you back?
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, my Discord died for a second. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
We're chilling.
Let's talk about some of the other like not so high up teams. So Brazil, we had 25-32, and I feel like this roster was one that says, no, actually, we can still win at least a match, even if we are only taking one match in the tournament. And even if all of our good players are gone, there will still be people here from Brazil who can pull off upset wins in round of 32, or at least get a win in losers bracket round 1. Teams like that, I think, are really interesting to look out for in the coming years, because these players, it's a lot of their first OWCs or like second OWCs, and yet they're still doing that well. So I feel like it should be motivation for them to do better.
I think 17 through 24 has 3 teams, maybe 4 that are kind of like that. Brazil, Japan, Taiwan, and then to a somewhat lesser extent, maybe even Finland, where because Finland didn't bring in all these new players, but they did like have some pretty compelling performances. But I think really Brazil, Japan, and Taiwan from that tier were all like big question marks on these rosters, right? A bunch of new players that people just are not going to be as familiar with, but who are performing really well and who are capable of doing really well, especially in the first round or two of OWC. I think those are teams to watch out for. That I think, you know, Japan got the tier we expected them to. Brazil did a tier better than we expected to. Taiwan did 2 tiers better than we expected them to, just by qualifying and then getting top 24. I think those 3 out of that tier are all in similar sorts of positions, and I'm very curious to see how they develop going forward, because it was definitely a little bit of a rebuilding year for all three of them, but they all qualified and they all, got a win in there and got into, the second tier of top 32 teams. So yeah, it's cool to see kind of just global tournament development from a lot of different countries, where historically, they were often stuck with a core roster that felt like it was the same from 2018 to 2022, 2023. And now they're making some big sweeping changes, and will take some time to show some results, but there's already some positivity you can take away from this year.
Yeah, I think within that level of that kind of tier of teams, there's definitely varying levels of confidence going into next year. I mean, Brazil had a pretty good match against Romania, which they won 5-3. Lost to South Korea as expected. It's hard to fault them for that. And then lost to a pretty strong Ukraine team who did end up taking the Philippines to tiebreaker. Whereas you look at a team like Finland, and they lost their first match to the UK 5-0. UK was a good team, fair enough. But they then barely won in tiebreaker over Spain, who were the 26th seed, but were not the strongest of teams this year. And then they proceeded to lose 6-1 to China. So it was good for them to get at least one win, but I think there are some teams that placed slightly higher than you'd expect that maybe squeaked by with easy matchups that are still slightly concerning for next year's OWC.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and we're just about at time here. So final question for us to discuss, and final little segment here. What are the must-watch matches of the tournament for you guys? No grand finals and no finals is allowed. People should already be watching those. If you want to look at OWC, at least watch the winners finals and watch the grand finals weekend.
Real quick, Dio, before I do that, did we want to talk about any of the players that had good performances, or are we out of time? Do we just
we're at about an hour and a half, and
all right, fair enough.
I think it may as well send it off here. I mean, there are some other notable players, right? But I think a lot of that is people that we expected to be good already, and then were also just good through the tournament, like Emrek, worst HR player, Nathan Rem, Kriller, Raikaho, Zudinator, FlyingTuna, Suntan. I mean, Suntan was unexpected for some people, but if you know anything about Chilean players, no, it's not unexpected.
Very good point.
Utami, Decaton, Rectagon. Wow, Bubbleman is good again. I'm so fucking surprised. Arnold is good again. I'm so surprised, right? Like, I feel like a lot of the people who were really good this year are expected. If I had to shout out like one player in particular, it'd probably be Def from Vietnam, who was top 25 in qualifiers and then unfortunately didn't get to play the tournament. Like a player from qualifiers who I think is just like way better than people can give credit for.
Yeah.
Aaron, do you have like one player you want to shout out for that? That's my underrated player of the OWC.
Underrated player of the OWC.
Because everything else is kind of boring to discuss, right? Like we already know that basically everybody on the best teams are already really good. So
while you're figuring that out, I'm going to give mine to Tichy. Tichy had a really good showing. Top 20 overall, was solid for Japan.
I don't even know if I have one. That feels really bad, but like all the people that come to mind are like the people that are already at the top. Low-key shoutouts to Thailand. I want to see them like continuing to grow and develop. Like Lesperia, dude, but he's already like at the top, so
he is.
It's like, but them as a team, that's like, I don't know. I have a sweet spot for Thailand for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna say them as a team.
Fair enough. All right. So now back to the other question. What's your must-watch match of the tournament? No finals or grand finals allowed. You have to pick something from semifinals or before. What's your one match you say?
One match?
If somebody who only has watched finals and grand finals, what one match do they watch before that?
I mean, the super obvious pick is Canada-UK from semis.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the super obvious pick, I think. That almost feels unfair to pick because it's so obvious.
Now, I think the obvious ones are of course, going to be all the tiebreaker matches. Philippines Ukraine was another great tiebreaker match. So I'm going to go with one that wasn't a tiebreaker match. And that match was, where was it? Let's see. I had it a second ago. Yes, it was UK versus Philippines. UK ended up winning 6-4, but there were a lot of I think I may have commentated that one, and there were a lot of scores that came down to less than 50,000, 100,000 points. So despite it not going to tiebreaker, it was incredibly close. Definitely worth watching, and that was my favorite non-tiebreaker match.
Okay.
I do want to shout out one other tiebreaker match just because it's earlier on in the tournament, and a lot of people I feel like kind of don't really tune in until like quarterfinals and onward.
Yeah.
But Russia versus China in
Yep.
the round of 16.
Yeah.
I commentated that match, so obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased, but it was a crazy performance from China against a Russia team that I think a lot of people just anticipated to run them over. They had some really insane scores in that match. And China winning by 17K on that DT to force the tiebreaker, and then having an incredibly contested tiebreaker right after. Really, really good early round match. I know, like I said, it feels like round of 32, round of 16 do not get the eyes, do not get the discussion that the later round matches do. But that one definitely worth going back to because it was a really, really competitive back and forth one.
Yeah. I think in the same vein, one of my matches of the tournament was also Spain versus Finland. Yes, because it was a tiebreaker, but also because there's so much history packed into that match. Spain and Finland played each other something like 3 or 4 times before that, and it was like, no, they hadn't played each other. It was like Spain had not even gotten to a tiebreaker since like 2016 or something. Finland has been 17-24 for 5 years in a row now, with 2024 having finished. So that was 4 years in a row on the line for them if they lost that match. Spain had never been a top 24 before in their history. So it was just like a bunch of different historical things for both teams coming at it during the tiebreaker. It was a very cool match. The scores obviously are not quite as high as some of the other matches like Russia-China, for example, on the same weekend. But does that really matter all that much when the teams are still going back and forth 5-4? You go into tiebreaker, the expectations are for the match to be really close and for Spain to maybe win, and yet Finland, for the 5th year in a row, gets top 24. It felt like a very, very cool match while I was watching it. And I think that'll do it. There's obviously some other really good matches that happened this World Cup. But overall, I think a lot of teams overperforming expectations, a lot of teams just having a rougher time than expected. And the top 8 really, really solidified this year with these teams who feel like they are just not going anywhere. Top 12, though, definitely a little bit more open for contention. China, Hong Kong, Philippines, Poland, looking a lot better this year than I think a lot of people might have expected. China and Hong Kong, I think, about as expected. Philippines, Poland, better than expected. And then top 16 and other tiers are just completely variable. So if you want really interesting matchups in OWC, a lot of that is going to be early stage because there's so much volatility for a lot of these teams. And I think that'll do it. I think that's it for us.
I think so.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks to Aaron and iFlame for coming on once again. Next week, we are going to have another couple of special guests here at Full Circle. So stay tuned for that. And we will see you all next time.